Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Century Countess. This is Mr. Critique, and we are here today to chat about fanes. Fanes that I have found very, very disturbing. People have wanted to go back in time and live in the old days. I have had my experience with the old days. And let me tell you, it's not glamorous. No, it is not glamorous. Let's talk about hygienics. Oh, that's the one priority. People like to be clean. Back then, cleanliness was a thing, but it wasn't as good as it is now. So I shall tell you, people were frugal when it came to their bath water. First off, it was a hassle. A hassle to heat up 2 buckets of water, hurl it towards the tub, dump it in, repeat, dump it in, repeat again, until finally you got it to the brim of the edge of the tub, and then you stepped in, you did your... But here's the thing. Depending on your position in the household, it depended who gets the bath first. For example, if you were the housewife, the first person who got the nice hot bath after you spent a great deal filling it up, hurting your back, ready to wash your joints that ache, it wasn't you! No, it was the head of household. And that could be the following. That could be the grandfather, of course, the main head, the owner of the house, depending. If he was still alive, he was the master of the house, so he got the bath first. After he was done washing his pit sweat, his butt sweat, every single ounce of sweat, every single ounce of poo from his buttocks that soiled into the tub, it was your husband's turn, who did the same thing. First, he scrubbed off the sweat off his pits, off his ass, off his eyes. Everywhere there was a sign of filth, sweat, anything, he scrubbed it off. Next came the kiddies. The kiddies, always next. After they got done, it was time for Grandmama, and then after Grandmama came Great-Grandmama, if she was still kicking. And next, finally, it was you. By then, and I repeat this, by then, that hot water was possibly borderline not lukewarm anymore. It was no longer clear. It was filthy, yellow, and God knows what else was in there. Yes, they did not drain the tub, refill it for the next person. They just did their thing, got up, and then the next person dove down in there. So basically, by the time it was your turn, you were not bathing cleanly. You were soaking in a variety of sweat, poo, and piss. Afterwards, you had to drain it, clean it, and by the time you were done with that, you were all sweaty and dirty again. But you'd already had your bath, and if you had another one, you'd have to repeat the process, because you didn't want a moldy wooden tub. With aristocrats, it was much easier. Very easier. They got their own tub, occasionally, depending. But the servants who was in charge of filling the tub, they had to, again, heat the water in 2 buckets, and this person might have lived on the other side of the house, or the manor, or the chateau, or Versailles, you name it. They had to hurl that stuff up in a hurry, making sure it stayed hot, and finally dump that out, and they had to run back downstairs again and prepare the next batch. By the time they were done, they were probably wanting a bath themselves. But when they got home, they had to do what I just described. Prepare the bath, let the head of the household do it, then the husband, then the elderly, then the kids, you name it, blah, 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 blah. And by the time you got it, you were sitting in a tub of dirty filth. with the nobility. At least you could perfume your bath. You could pour oil in it. You could put perfume in it. You could douse it with flower petals. Anything to hide your putrid armpit smell, your musky, endless scent that never went away. And soak in that filthy mess that not only did not do much to clean, it just oiled up your body, hid the scent, and then when you were done, you were nothing but a filthy, oily, perfumey mess. What was it like being a doctor? Let's describe what it would have been like. Let's say you were your doctor in the modern time, but you wouldn't live in the old days. Here's what it would have been like if you were working as a physician for the royal family. The worst case was you participated in watching the king take his shit and his piss. You stood there less 6 feet away, very close to smelling his good awful aftermath of whatever he had the night prior, whatever he ate for that day for breakfast, just dumped into that big wooden box with a hole in it where he stuck his butt and pooped and paid. To make sure the king was healthy, you basically lifted the lid of that cushioned, dirty wooden box. You pulled out a lovely little turd, and you not only smelt it, you not only broke it apart to see what it looked like on the inside, you trampled it! Yes, you tasted the king's shit! And depending on its taste, if it didn't taste like normal shit, whatever that taste was, it was determined if the king's health was good or not, depending on how good his shit tasted, and that included his piss too. If his piss was a certain shade of yellow, if it was a certain smell, if it was a certain taste, same thing. It depended on his health. Also, you had to have permission to use the bathroom. Sometimes that permission wasn't granted. So, when you were in court, if you were a lady or a man, for example, let's say you were a lady in waiting, or a noble lady, and you're in the presence of the queen, there'd be this beautiful ceramic vase on a marble pedestal. And basically, you would ask the queen, may I have permission to use the loo? If granted, you would basically use that little vase on a pedestal in front of everybody. If you didn't have permission, you had to hold it in. Even when you really had to go, you couldn't run out. You had to suffer the consequences. And if you soiled yourself, you were considered improper, not worthy of the queen's presence. You were forced out of court for being the most disgusting and vile thing, for just having an accident that you couldn't hold. It was the same thing with the men. If you didn't have the king's permission to piss, you had to hold it in, and of course you could hold it in until finally your bladder gives out on you, and you just soil yourself on front of the floor, in front of the king, in front of everybody, and instead of it being considered an accident, you too were thrown out of the court for being the most disgusting, ill-mannered, no person. Your surname was tarnished. Everything was tarnished. Your entire family hated you because you ruined their name. Your houses were seized, everything. You were considered lower than dirt just by an accidental piss. Caterpillar brows. Caterpillar brows. Every woman wanted thick, juicy caterpillar eyebrows. Brows like a caterpillar. A lady could be just walking down her chateau, minding her own business, and she'd see a caterpillar. First thing she wants, she wish her brows were as bushy and thick as that caterpillar. So what does she do? Let's say you're a mouse. You haven't eaten in a week, and you see a nice, juicy piece of cheese. You get caught in a trap, and the first thing you recall before you die an agonizing death is some crazy noble woman scooping you up, slamming you down on the table, taking a knife, slicing open your back, ripping half your hide out, and then throwing you at her pet cat. And while the cat is feasting on your innards, you watch this woman in delight wash the hide that she ripped off your back, clean it, she cut it into little caterpillar shapes, and what does she do? Smash it in a book, and then later on sticks it on her eyebrows. And she wears it out in public, claiming that these are her real, bushy, thick, caterpillar eyebrows. The thought of it disgusts me. The thought of it, because back then, men didn't know if the woman that they were marrying, the woman that they were courting, really looked as good as they seemed. Because basically back then, some men believed that women hid what they really looked like under cosmetics. So, on the wedding night, when the lady removes all of her cosmetics, takes out her false teeth, and she walks out looking like she's from the bog, directly from the swamp witch's lair, the man is screaming bloody murder because he can't divorce. Divorce was not appropriate back then. He could, but it would basically ruin his family, because the wife's dowry basically bumped them up a level into the court, bumped them up a level into position, bumped them up a level, and basically the woman was considered a liar. She got what she wanted, and then she could spend her life living happily, basically not having to look glamorous anymore. I don't understand why people want to live back in the old days when you're dealing with caterpillar eyebrows. If you're a doctor, you're going to be eating the king's shit and drinking his piss. Having to share a bath in the same bath water that's been used by several other of the people who live in your house, and it's not clean water, it's borderline tap water, warm with sewage coloring. I don't get it. I'll never get it. And by the way, cleanliness. When you did use the toilet, you used a pre-used rag on a stick that somebody else used if you used the public restrooms back in those days. And let me tell you, those public restrooms were not as cleanly as the public restrooms today. Sometimes there's a nasty modern time bathroom that takes me back to the past. But at least there is a clean roll of toilet paper. But for us, we either had a rag that had been used by other people's asses, or in the super old days, we're talking about Roman times, you had a little sponge that was used by every single man's butt that wiped his ass, and then after that somebody picked it up, wiped their ass with it, and then another person picked it up and wiped their ass with it, stuck it back in. By the end of the day, that thing was not a little sponge anymore. It was a pile of shit on top of a pile of shit. Meanwhile, if you were in court, you'd be dealing with everybody's perfumey, covered up musk. A combo of very strong floral perfume, disguised over a musky, sweaty, germy gym smell. And we refer to it as gym smell, with a combo of shit, maybe a little bit of piss. That's what you'd be selling, and it would only get worse as the humid weather got hotter. With a faint after smell of melted wax from the lit candles in the room. Depending on your station, your diet was not the same as the monarchies. For example, peasants, people who did not have money, who lived on their own farm hands, were basically borderline vegetarians. Occasionally they might have a rooster or two. They'd basically grab one, wring its neck until its head popped off. Then they'd squeeze out the giblets from its neck, throw the carcass over in a haystack to burn later for firewood. like firewood, I should say, and then stir up all the giblets, add a little bit of urine for seasoning, a little salt, a little pepper, throw it into a pot, stir it up again, cook it, and then serve it, possibly with either rice and a couple of partially cooked raw potatoes and carrots, and whatever veggies they had on them. You bleached your clothes in 2-week-old piss, because basically piss had the same similar chemicals as bleach, so that's basically how you would get the stains out of your white linens, was human piss. 2 weeks old, also very good for dandruff and dry scalp. Aztecs learned that trick a long time ago, and it was also used back then as well. And let me tell you how scandalous women could be if they were gifted with a big set of hooters. Back then, men showed off their legs, they showed off their figures. It was considered sexy in that time. Men that showed off their calves in very tight stockings, that was considered sexy. But if a woman showed off her legs like they do now, it wasn't considered sexy, it was considered hoochie. If the woman had a hint of boob crack showing, she was considered scandalous, loose, harlot, even noble-blooded or not. If 1 inch of boob crack showed, she was in trouble, even if she had breast gifts by the gods. The bigger the boobs, the danger it was for her reputation. And they had braces. Yes, they had braces. Just look up the horrific case of Marie Antoinette when she found out she was about to get married. The French person representative came down, saw how she looked, and said, "Your teeth look like crap. We're going to put you in horrific, scary-looking braces that were more painful, more torturous back then." It was these little things that they shoved into your teeth with little wires in the back that they would twist. Every end of the week, they would twist it tighter till finally, within a month or two, your teeth were perfectly straight. You had a big forehead. That was perfect. You were considered intelligent, which is why some women, they would pluck a couple of layers from the front of their heads to basically hint that they were very intelligent. Especially those who didn't have a lucky chance to be educated back then, because sometimes women weren't educated back then. So, to hide that, they basically enlarged their forehead by just plucking a few hairs from their scalp. The wedding night, let me tell you the wedding night, which is going to be our showstopper. It wasn't private, it wasn't intimate, it was a show. It was like what is it called? It's a Super Bowl event. You got to sit down with an audience and watch the king perform his weddingly duties to his bride, his now queen, behind closed sheets. You didn't see it, but you certainly heard the magic happening. And those poor people, the king and the queen's only privacy were those sheets. Sometimes they didn't close them all the way, so every now and then you might see somebody peeking in. It was the same when it came to the queen giving birth. It was also like a Super Bowl. They did it just in case there was a scandal, an attempted scandal. What I mean by that, let's say the kid was a girl. The kid was stillborn. It was to prevent the queen trying to fake her duty if she failed at it. And the failing part was she gave birth to a daughter or it was a stillborn prince. So what she would do is basically endure an audience, no comfort, as she basically displayed herself, basically giving birth, no sheets this time. Everybody had to see what was going on, everybody had to see what was coming out. Some people fainted, some people gasped with joy. It was insane. But they did it to make sure that the baby was not swamped. And And that's it for this video. So, that is not the entirety of what you would endure if you wanted to live in the past. That is some of the intensity of it. So, do you still want to live in my timeline? Do you still want to live in a time where you watch people take a shit, share bath water that's been used by a multitude of people in your household, watch women put caterpillar brows on their head, on their foreheads that came from the poor innocent rat's back? Do you? Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't, and stay tuned for more Unhinged History.